All right. Hey, folks. Let's see if you can hear me. Already seen some questions in chat. So, I'm going to scroll through a bit. We have Pyrofox asked a good question. You can hear me. Great. Yeah, well, first of all, my name is Andrew. I go by Avarem on the internet some places. I am the creative director at Shiny Shoe and the game director on Monster Train. I also did a lot of the original design. I had a lot of help, obviously, from the team. But as a game designer, math person, I was basically the person doing that on the game. So a lot of tuning, a lot of using data, all that stuff. So I'm kind of the numbers guy. I was told we could have a boring, nerdy math stream today, and that you guys should ask me those questions. So there's been balance questions, there's been how we tune things questions, all that stuff. I'll probably do a run also. I'll be honest, it's been a little bit since I have played. I've been working on other stuff that we have upcoming, even beyond this, which is always exciting. Nothing I can talk about today, but Monster Train has got some cool stuff going on, obviously. So, DLC. Nope. All right, so this is the last Divinity. If you haven't been around for a while, this is our DLC update. I know a ton of you guys played it. Probably all of you guys played it. You're the hardcore people. We do not yet have a date to announce. We should have a little more information soon. Check back in with us next week. No guarantees, but there might be news. There also might not. Looking forward to getting it to you, though. Like anything, we're on all these different platforms. We're on Xbox now. We're on the Windows Game Store. We're on Steam. We are doing a lot of polish still. We're wrapping things up, bundling it up. We're going to put it everywhere at the same time. We want to get it out to all of you guys who play the game. We really appreciate your feedback. We took a bunch of it, and it went in. So even since you've played, we've done a ton of polish. So let me answer some questions before they get too backed up. Hello, Rough Lobster. Also, you said hi. All right, great. So I'm going to try to go in order here. Pyrofox asked, what does the data say? What the data says about a lack of multi-strike leading to losses? It feels so important. So the way we balance things specifically is not on necessarily like a status effect level or anything like that, but we do see pick rates, win rates for all sorts of things: cards, artifacts, clans, champion upgrades. Basically, whatever you might imagine, we can see, and we can sort of see what win and loss rates those cause, what their pick rates are from when people see them in a draft, when they pick them. And so we look at everything holistically. So like multi-strike cards are not in a vacuum by themselves, right? Obviously they get picked a certain rate, they win a certain rate, and we make sure that everything is in a certain band, a certain range. We don't need everything to be like the exact same. That would be boring. But we do need it to not be like too absurd. We can't have something be picked 80% of the time and then win 50% of the time. That would be ridiculous. That would be way, way, way overpowered. So if something is picked 1% of the time, but it wins 100% of the time, that never happens, but it wins a high amount when it's picked a small amount, that's also strategic. That means people are picking something when it suits them, not all the time, but when it suits you, and then it's pretty good in those right conditions. That can be okay as a narrow card, and that can be strategic. We also look at different covenant levels. We look at like high covenant levels versus low. Higher covenant levels usually have more experienced players. We generally tune a bit more around higher levels as a result, and so on and so forth. So multi-strike is great, but not overpowered. There are other strategies. However, it is one of the most straightforward strategies. It's easy to see how multi-strike does more damage. So it can be a good one to pick early on when you're still kind of learning the game, when you're learning about synergies. But as you get towards the higher tiers of the game, we have generally tried to balance, I'm going to adjust my camera stuff a little, everything against each other. And Jaybird Returns asked, do you see when cards are not picked? We definitely see that. Okay. Let's see. Is it possible the community will ever receive a set of win rates, pick rates, etc., as a way to show previous patches work? We have generally decided not to. I understand other games have done it. The reason we've decided not to is because it makes it more, what I would say, obvious what the right choices are, and we consider that a big part of the strategy of playing the game. I mean, I can see at some point, a year out, especially after the DLC, where we just want to kind of give more tools to the community to make cool things. I can see us potentially showing that, but in general, we see that as part of what is like mastering and learning the game, and part of what encourages debate among the community, and feel that if that is out in the public, the debate is like, well, just go look at the website, and it's going to tell you what is winning and what is being picked. And we would rather you guys sort of debate that amongst yourselves and figure that out amongst yourselves, more so than looking at data from everyone playing the game. So I know I'm missing some, and they're getting picked up in this document that I'm going to go back to. So I'll just keep trying to answer questions. And we'll do a run once I slow down here, once we stop getting as many questions. So let's see. Volcano1450 asks, will the balance changes from the DLC come to the base game without buying the DLC? Yes. The balance changes from the DLC will be in the base game. There will not be two separate balances or anything like that. The base game will get all of the updates. But obviously, all of the new content is coming in the DLC. All right. I'm going to go back. Bink Lee asks, is there a threshold you look for in terms of a card being too good or bad for pick rate? Yes. The very simple answer is yes. Sometimes we're okay with cards being a bit more narrow or a bit more broad, obviously, but it is totally a range. If something is picked 100% of the time, that is way too much. And if something is really 1% is too low, that's obviously, even probably like 5% is too low. It really, really, really depends. Yes, there's thresholds, and that basically means that we will look at that card. If we see something outside of that threshold, especially on live servers where there's a ton of people playing, especially at the high end, we will generally look at one of those cards for tuning. The Juke83 asked, how do you decide to spread potential strength of units within a clan? How many super strong rare units balance against weaker, more common units? Sure. That is really, really complicated often. There's also like a lot of things that units can do, because units show up more often. Like, they show up more often than other cards you can draft. Obviously, they show up in banners. There's fewer of them. You're going to see the same ones more often. They can really set the core themes of a class, especially sort of those baseline ones. So we want to make sure that, like, when we're designing a new clan, we have an even distribution of kind of the core mechanics of the clan. There's all the different attributes we want to have show up. So when you do a run, you kind of know certain things will probably show up for you. Obviously not guaranteed, but there are certain themes that will be present. So that's really kind of the baseline, the ones that show up in the banner most often. The rare ones, obviously, we want to like kind of go down a certain path for the clan. And a lot of that is like kind of cool and fun factor combined with power level that goes into those designs. So it's something, usually for those, where like we want them also to often be able to, if possible, define a run. So if you get a certain one, it can create a strategy for you to try to go for. Again, usually something that fits into a theme of the clan, but we want you to see those pop up, and especially if they show up early, if you get lucky enough to see one early, you can pick it and sort of start to define a run around it if you'd like. And then later they're strong enough to kind of distract you. You could be like, well, I had a strategy, but this is pretty strong. I should still pick it. And maybe it will like diversify your strategy a little bit because you're getting extra power from it. Creom, you asked, can I activate open beta on Xbox Game Pass? There is not currently any beta going on, and we did not run the beta on Xbox Game Pass, and it is unlikely that it will be. Basically, due to how like Xbox works, it's just a lot harder to run there. And it was very short. Really, our goal was to get a couple thousand people in, which is pretty small for our audience size. Play the game, give us feedback, and make it more polished for everyone. So it will be coming to you guys on Xbox at the same time that it shows up for PC. We're going to put it on all platforms at the same time. We are working on finishing it up, polishing it up, and getting it ready for you guys. It is still a little ways out. So I don't want to say it's coming anytime super soon, but this is basically like another launch, and pandemic times also make launches a little bit slower. We were very fortunate that we were kind of like, we had a lot of momentum going into the pandemic to launch the full game, but putting this thing entirely together during the pandemic and then launching it has been slowed down a bit. So It's still a little ways to go. We appreciate all the testers. We're using their feedback. And we are wrapping it up, but it's still a bit out. Okay. More questions? Yeah, so many questions. Bunch of math nerds up in here. Let's talk about stuff. All right. Some of these are very long. I appreciate it when they have fewer words, but I will still answer them. Vision of Fire said, question can wait, but would it be possible sometime in the future to improve run data so something like Spiralog's run data is possible? So pick rate, choice pathing. Okay, this kind of relates to what I said earlier. It's possible. I think right now we're not totally planning on it. And there's things that we are like philosophically hesitant about to do, like I said earlier. We do like kind of promoting strategies for new players. We've also been chatting a bit about our Discord and potentially making it more friendly to new players to kind of show up and ask questions. So that's something we might do actually in the relatively near future, is make some changes in our Discord to make it so it's more possible. It's a little less daunting for new players, is something we've kind of heard and a thought we've had. So Genesee actually was like prodding me about it, like, hey, can we let new players ask questions better? So promoting guides and stuff like that is something we could be inclined to do as well there. More so than necessarily exposing a ton of data, at least right now. I feel like I should do a run while answering these questions. That's going to just be pure chaos. Should I? I'm going to answer some more questions. You have great questions. We're going to chill here. Otherwise, I'm going to get distracted. And thank you for asking questions with fewer words. Mars Greek God said, is it possible that we can have fusing units recolor them to the colors of other clans? That's pretty cool. Oh, huh. I don't know. That is probably not going to happen at this point. I like that idea. A lot of the visuals for the update, again, game development, behind the scenes stuff, visuals get locked in and are harder to change than other things. It's often why we do it last, but the visuals for this update are largely locked in. Right now it's been kind of like numbers and bug fixing and crash fixing and all that stuff, performance. And then certification, if you know what that is. It's the nerdy thing where we have to go send it to Microsoft and they tell us that it's great for their system or they found bugs. So that is where we are right now in the production of the update. So it's unlikely for us to make visual changes at this point. Although that is a cool idea and I wish I had heard it sooner. Here's a question I don't know the answer to. Maybe someone else can answer for me. Agony, the vampire werewolf, off topic a little, but cultivate going to be tweaked so it no longer affects morsels. I don't think so. But let me just actually make a note. And morsels. All right, note made. At this point, I might disappoint you and say probably not. Okay. Vision Fire, you said it would probably help if you had a spotlight series on how to play less used cards or champion paths that are actually quite powerful. That is interesting also. And that is also an area where I would love to see our pro players, our highly dedicated folks, do something. I know it can be a challenge though, to necessarily get one of those off the bat. Amphid says, don't cultivate your morsels. That is an option. Yeah. I mean, at this point, we've hit a point with the life cycle of this game where, before launch, developers, including myself, had hundreds of hours in it. We were the best players, of course, obviously. And now other people out there are way better than we are. It's just, you can't play a game as much as you make it, and other people can play it more. So I would love to see some of that. And I think we could totally promote if someone was going to be oh, I want to make some videos of how to really use some of the more esoteric strategies. That'd be really, really cool. Huh. All right. I'm going to try to answer this question, even though I don't know a term in it. Hopplite Joe says, with so many cards and items, how do you avoid accidentally P hacking, which is the term I don't know. It's the letter P. That is, seeing significantly good card, which is just winning more often by luck. So, with the data we have and the wide range of players we look at, it would be shocking to have a card win by luck across that many people. Like it, you can definitely win just by luck. You can draft something and you win, not because of it. You just have it in your deck. Um, but over enough people and over enough cards, because we're comparing them all against each other, all cards have that luck factor. All cards, represent one card slot in your deck. It could be a dud card. All cards could be a dud card in any given strategy, and they don't matter. But fundamentally, since we're all comparing them against each other and we're comparing them with pick rate, and we have so many runs, I think lifetime, it was over 1 million for sure. I want to say maybe even 2 million. It's a lot of data. We get a lot of data. It quickly fills up, especially on the live servers. So we often do, for what it's worth, like we have these public tests, we have private tests, we have internal tests, and then we also do tuning updates, usually, especially after major updates. So even after this DLC goes out, and especially after this DLC goes out, we're just going to see a ton of data. We're going to see a ton of variety. We're going to see, sort of there's some bake-in time where people get used to the new cards, used to the new strategies. So we are going to do a balance patch after the DLC goes out as well, and after people sort of get used to it and we see some emergent strategies come out of it, we will also do a balance pass. All right. Oh, so many good questions today. This is just Q&A time. Did I say bacon time? I did. I said bake in. Yes, not bacon, not the pork product, but rather, as though an oven bakes things. Yes, Colix. That is the kind of time I meant. I also had some Reddit threads that I was supposed to address that I will get to. Okay, so let's. Oh my God, you guys are. I love it. Questions. There should totally be a time. Yes, I should. Demas Gibby asked, when a run is going bad, you suddenly get some very good cards or power-ups. Is that designed to happen or just luck? That is pure chance. That is, and I'm going to use this as a way to thread into one of the Reddit threads or Reddit comments. That is your brain noticing patterns. Yep, we do not cheat in any way there. We don't know what powerful cards are. Like, the game has no idea of what is a theoretic power level of card, outside of, like, the rarities, obviously. But if there is a card that is being picked more by players or whatever, the game has no idea. That is just pure chance. So, yeah. Congratulations for getting those power-ups and taking them. So, speaking of pure chance, we have a Reddit thread about the Big Chungus Mutator and it showing up in daily challenges, and also the person who commented on it was like, it's really annoying. So I'm going to talk a bit about mutators, daily challenges, randomness, all these things. So first of all, the way we pick our mutators for the daily challenge. So every mutator in the game has, first of all, in order to avoid mutators showing up too much, we never give you the same ones back to back in 2 different days. However, alternating days, the same ones could totally show up. But right, so the way we pick them, all mutators in the game have a value. It could be a negative value, it could be 0, it could be a positive value. And this is basically our estimation along with some tuning of how impactful it is. So negative ones are bad, positive ones are good. Some of them are bigger good, some of them are bigger bad, less, so on and so forth. What we do is we pick 2 at random. We pick a positive one and a negative one, and then we add them up, and we say this is how tough it is so far, and we have a range. We have a range that we're allowing basically the mutators to influence a run. I don't know what it is offhand right now. We've changed it over time. It's pretty wide. Let's say it's like -5 to +2. I think we generally try to make daily challenges a bit harder because the Covenant level is so low. We want to challenge even some of the pro players. So it's this range, and then we pick a third mutator that fits inside that range that's going to get the total number of the positive and the negative of all the mutators in it inside that range. So yeah, that's how we pick daily challenge mutators. It's very random. We also simulate it on the back end so we can look at it and make sure it's working, especially before we launch new updates. And in general, like, there's a pretty even distribution of mutators. That's it. Randomness is random. And if you flip a coin a bunch, you're going to see heads show up in a row. You're going to see tails show up in a row. Randomness is random. And this shows up in games all the time where you're like, why do I see this one thing all the time? Why do I not see something else? It's because it's random. It's because developers like us did not do anything to stop it from being random. Stopping things from being random makes it work in a way that you think randomness might work, which is evenly distributing it. So that said, so that's why you would see the big chungus mutator several days in a row, or several times in a week. You wouldn't see it several days in a row because we do prevent that, but we don't prevent it from more than that. That said, what we do sometimes when we think a mutator is too annoying, when players think a mutator is too annoying, is even though it might be balanced at whatever negative value it is, we're like, it gets a little extra negative because it's a little bit annoying, and we want to give you some more positive juice to make up for that feeling of annoyance. We did this with the one that gives damage shield to enemies because that was annoying. And that's something we might end up doing here based on this feedback. So yes, I think we'll probably talk about that a bit. We might make that one for this DLC update a little more negative, just to be like, yeah, here you go. When it shows up, it is kind of annoying. And the Juke asks, have you implemented a fake random option for random mode to give even more spread for clan choices? Exactly. When your clan choices keep giving you the same clans, or you think they do, that's because it is random. And it's something that's, I think it's come up. I don't know if we're going to plan on doing it. I don't know if we're going to do it. I don't think it would be opt-in. It would probably just be something we bake into it. But that is where, like, people are like, this doesn't feel random because there's a pattern. You notice a pattern, and that is because it is, yeah, in fact, random. Every single game I've ever worked on, some developers have the same, like, kind of math pattern recognition thing, like everyone does. It's a person thing. They're like, are you sure the random number generator is working? Because I keep seeing the same thing drop from my loot table or whatever the heck it is on a game. I used to work on MMOs a bunch. And the answer always is we simulate it and it is random, and that is how you know, is because you see the same thing dropping sometimes. Apparently I just say bacon a lot, according to Cox. All right. I probably have other questions I've been ignoring because that was a lot of words. So I'm going to like check out chat if you guys got anything. I know I have a backlog here as well. What's my favorite card from another card game? That's a tangent, but that's interesting. I can come back to that. I'll just answer that real quick. I don't know why. I literally don't know why. I like Lightning Bolt. It's just satisfying. I mean, it was like powerful for a while. You know, 1 red mana, 3 damage. I played a ton of Magic the Gathering. I still go back to it from time to time. Super glad their digital version is out. Every so often, I spend a week just absorbed in Magic again. But yeah, simple card. Does something simple, but it had a lot of personality. Our Hornbreak was, for a while, one Ember cost, 3 damage. It just satisfied me. It was like, it's Lightning Bolt. We have Lightning Bolt in our game. Obviously, it changed since then, but it was that for a bit. It is still good. I know they've like phased it out because it was too good, which is interesting. It's just like in a game that has so much complexity, to have this simple card that's iconic is great. I like that sort of feeling. All right. Questions. I have more questions. Mars Greek God suggestion, second daily at 25. I do think we're unlikely to do that. We like everyone playing together in the same challenge. We consider score as the way to really like prove how awesome you are. I do think that the last Divinity, you know, once this is out, it adds more challenge to the game. Our win rate does, you know, the game is harder. You have another boss to fight. After the current boss, it is a harder boss. There are more choices to make. There's more choices, like with the shards, to sort of sync your own run, where you have to have even more skill. So we think we're adding even more depth to the game. We know we're adding even more depth to the game. We've seen the numbers. We played it. You guys have played it. So that there's going to be 2 daily challenges after that. You can play both. Basically, if you click this toggle, it's going to, like, when you go to challenges, it'll just show you one, obviously, but you can click the toggle and turn it off, and then go to challenges, and then click and play the other one. So you can play the harder Last Divinity one, and you can also play the default one after the update goes out. And to take a question from a little bit ago, Demas Gibby asked, when during a run that's going bad... Oh, nope, we answered that one. It didn't get marked off. Pyrofox asked a question I can't answer, which is the average deck size on Covenant 25 victories. I do not know offhand, actually. That's one I'd probably be willing to answer, but I don't know offhand. So, sorry. Got it. So, Chaos for a 1/1. Hopefully that doesn't turn into a bad word. Our Chaos Hall. Our card pick win rates looked at in isolation or in terms of combinations of cards as well. I.e. Shadow Siege, Space Prisms, Ember Generation, Sure. Yep. So isolation, both is the answer. Isolation will usually give us that information because it's kind of holistic to the entire game, where we can sort of see that at least in presence with the other options showing up in a run, you have to pick one first, right? You always have to pick one first, so you're still making some kind of bet. So that's often a lot of the information we need to balance things. That said, we do have the capability of isolating all of this information to specific artifact picks, card picks. So if we're ever like trying to tune something and we want to make sure we're tuning it in the right way, we can ask ourselves like, oh, do we think, that like it's going to, the win rate is just because of this one combination that exists. And actually, one of the reasons we added a certain type of new content to the update, which is a new rare unit per clan, so there's now 3 instead of 2, was to actually add a little more randomness as well to the rare units. So they're a little less consistent, so those combinations show up a little bit less, and you're making a bit more of a bet to get synergy. But yeah, that said, we can also really dive into the data when we want to, although we often look at the very like broad levels first to figure out what kind of combinations might be causing something to be overpowered. Favorite new card. So Collex asks, what's my favorite new card? Treasure and Boss. Ooh. I mean, we really only kind of have one new boss. So let's see. I can open my logbook. I can talk about some new stuff. So I like Cheater's Hand. This card just adds a lot of new choice. And anything that is sort of like a broad choice increasing card is something I like. Thematically, I also really liked this one, the Golden Vault, just because it's kind of cursed. You can pick it and you can, like, it's very good. You can have really overpowered runs with it, but you can also kind of hose yourself. This is something I liked about the shard mechanic as well. Obviously, where it's like, oh, you get very powerful things, but you can also overdo it. Too much cake is fun. It's a fun and interesting choice to have to make. Where it can go either way. The range is not just pure positive. It causes you to ask yourself, is this right from the run I'm doing? Is this going to be very strong, or is it going to, actually in the end cause me regret? And I feel like anytime you feel that regret, it's actually also kind of a good gameplay moment where you feel like you really learned something, which is, I should not do that again because I made a mistake. And the next time you won't pick that in that same circumstance. So shards, Golden Vault, and then yeah, Cheater's Hand. Just it adds a lot of like options. So which card in this hand should I put back? Okay, cards. I think I answered this before, and it's still true, and it's sort of on the same term of like the Lightning Bolt answer from before. I like Bogfly. It scales well. It's really interesting. It interacts with the core mechanic of the clan. It's this little unit you can just kind of put out there, and it can do a bunch of damage. Or, again, if you're not really synergizing with it, it can be kind of weak. So, yeah, it's just easy to understand. Like, I like complicated cards. I like a lot of combos, stuff like that. I played, Blue and Magic the Gathering. But in the end, I do like sometimes the simple things that just have a lot of interesting, like, just core use, and especially with this clan. How am I doing on time? Oh, we have a ton of time. I need to talk slower. Now we got a lot of questions. How are you guys doing? Let me know if I should play a run, but I'm having a good time answering questions. Seems like you guys keep them coming in. If I start playing a run, I will probably focus just a little less on it. So I want to keep answering your questions. We're here to be math nerds for a day. Well, we're going to keep doing streams, kill a little time these weeks as we lead up to launch. Since you guys have obviously seen most of the update at this point. But I am super excited to get it out to you. Just doing a QA and staring at the logbook. Squeak Cheese Taker says. Great. More logbooks. I mean, we can just like look at the logbook. I don't know. You guys have seen it? I'm sure this is all on the wiki at this point. You know, it's around. Is this? Do we have this in the update? The unit essences. You can see what they're gonna do when you synthesize them. I don't know if we had in the logbook for the beta. That went in right at the end. Okay. Hackin TCG asked, what is the most difficult, challenging thing the team faced during developing the DLC? So we have Decronix in chat, who also did a lot of sort of the tuning and content implementation on the DLC. Really helped support me a lot, and got us through a bunch of that. So he can even give an answer to that as well in chat, and his answer might very well be different than mine. As always, balance and tuning we have a ton of data. Slicing it in different ways is tough, and we added a lot more to look at with this update. You know, obviously more clan combinations, more things that can modify your run, more randomness because different enemies can get upgraded. All that stuff makes it more interesting to tune. I think the other thing from a pure planning and design development side was deciding how to expand the game in ways that made sense. We wanted the game to feel bigger with the DLC. And when we spend some time polishing a game like Monster Train, and it's so kind of tightly wound, it can be tough to find things to add onto it that feel correct. And so that was a big challenge. And then also like the final boss, something we've learned about bosses, including Seraph, for the people who tested with us before launch and leading up to launch, and actually Friends and Foes when we had a new Seraph variant, is that you generally want to play the deck you're building. I know this is like one of those things that sounds super obvious, and as a developer telling you're like, yeah, of course you do. Of course you want to play the deck you're building. How would we not know that? And we do know that, but we also always want to make the bosses feel interesting. So we always make them more impactful to start with. We basically always do something that's probably going to change how you're playing. And then almost universally, like internal feedback, external feedback, is that we need to kind of tone it down a bit in different ways. We need to make it not change the game too much because it invalidates strategies that you might have picked and things like that. And so as a process, I think it's actually pretty good. It lets us experiment with some ideas, and then usually we iterate to get it to a point where it still feels different, but it's not, ruining your run. It's not destroying entire strategies, things like that. And we sort of tame the bosses a bit. But that's a big challenge, is kind of creating fights that feel different, but still let you play the wide range of strategies you want to play when you're building your deck. Jaybird Returns asked, did the idea for the change to Horned Warrior come from a mod? I actually don't know the answer to that question. That would be a Decronix answer because he took over some of those changes. So, and he answered. He said not specifically, but I did later notice that the balance mod, quote unquote, used a similar change. That one of those things. Sometimes good ideas just show up. So he sees where the question comes from. Yeah, there are balance mods out there which we sort of look at like the way we balance is different than the way those often balance. Our audience is broader. It's a lot more. I wouldn't say more players necessarily, but like we just need to look at a lot more things at any given time. Whereas balance mods are kind of opt-in. Like you can look for a certain kind of balance out of the game. You can be a certain kind of player. So maybe the balance mod is going to suit you better actually than the balancing we do, because we are trying to balance for a wider range of playstyles and a wider range of things, especially towards the end game. But a balance mod could suit you very well. So, I definitely encourage taking a look at those and seeing if something does suit you. That's the point of mods. Play the game you want to play. Pyrofox question, if you were to look at the win rates of the Seraph variants, is there much variance between them? I will say no the last time they were tuned. They should be back to that now. But our goal is yes. Our goal is to have them be quite close to each other. Obviously, that can be a big challenge with the amount of variance in the game. But historically, we've gotten them pretty close to each other. And that is one of the things that we generally dial back in as well, like post big updates. So I'm sure it's going to be a little bit wider after this update goes out, but probably not too much. Like they are quite close to each other. All right. Actually, don't. I might need some clarity on this question. Mars Greek God, you asked, how did we pick damage scale, and does that mean like the numbers we're using and the range we're using, or what? Degenerate Tendencies said Slay the Spire is a feature where you save a card from another run for the next. Any chance we get something like that? I would say no, basically. Um, the reasons we have a feature they don't have, which is you can share pretty much any run with other players. It will like the same seed, same information, same starting conditions. Basically everything will go, and you can be like, we want to compete on this run against someone else, and there's the leaderboard. It'll show you the leaderboard, and that just doesn't work with that kind of feature. Um, that was a really cool event when it showed up. We could like try to disable it or do something to have it work, but fundamentally, like I like that idea. It's a cool concept. I'm glad that game has it. Right. It doesn't work with that thing we added, and so we're unlikely to do it ourselves. Maybe a mod could add it. All right, all right, all right, all right. It needs the number you're using. Mars Greek God. Oh, yep. Yep. So, right. So Mars Greek God is clarifying. So 1 is small in some games, 10 is the smallest you can go. Right. So how did we choose, right, our damage numbers? In general, the way it worked is we started with the smallest numbers we could. Like, in general, smaller numbers are a bit easier to, like, parse and understand. They feel chunkier. They feel meatier. That was generally our goal. We started with smaller numbers. And our process was to sort of expand it as we needed it to have more tuning range. Um, so we kind of went to like increments of 5 to still keep some chunkiness, or when we could do that. And then obviously upgrades can add smaller increments and stuff. It was some consternation for the team because they're like, isn't this just power growth? But really, functionally, the reason to do it this way was we wanted to keep the numbers as small as possible, but when we needed a little bit of extra range between them, when we needed more tuning, we did push them up. So things started smaller. If you ever see some of our really early screenshots from our prototype versions of the game, the numbers were a bit smaller. Yeah, and then they grew. Some games, yeah, they want like the pinball thing where it's like 1,000,000 damage or whatever. Also very hard to show on cards. So we do like keeping the font size bigger, numbers smaller. Bigger font size is also good. But yeah, that was the process there. Squeak Cheese Taker, is it possible the challenge UI will get a small rework? Currently, you can do a lot of things, but hard to figure out, like make a custom Hell Rush. It is. It is frankly unlikely. It's just one of those things like this late in game development on a game. Redoing a whole UI can be like pretty hard to do, and we generally think that like it's a bit of an advanced feature, and you can do the things you want to do. So it's there. I hear you. Like I love to polish everything about a game. I know we've taken notes on that. We thought about it for what we do next and things like that. But it's just one of those areas where we don't think a lot more people would necessarily even use it if it was easier to use, because the people who want to use it can do it. And we'd rather polish other areas where people use it more. So, for example, like I was doing this toggle unit essence stuff like that. That was a UI feature that was like kind of challenging to do, but we realized through feedback that it was something that would really help like all of the players playing the update see the things they want to see about their units. And those are the kind of UI features that we're more likely to do, which isn't to say that we're not going to do UI features or improve things, but probably where we'd focus our time is going to be on things that have a big enough impact that we can definitely see. So things like that, things like colorblind mode, all that kind of stuff that we did, are the areas that when we do kind of these UI updates, we're focusing on. Hack and TCG asked, is there any card that impressed you guys after testing, like with win ratio, scaling, or overall performance, doing much more than initially planned, or not doing something at all? I'm trying to remember specifics. Like a lot of this that stood out to me was kind of so Decarnix took a lot of the balance in this update. I did a lot for the original game, and definitely there's people in chat here who have been testing with us since the original game before it came out, and I see their names in here, and maybe they can help me. But I know like scaling cards, like the ones that in like and again, I'm in the logbook. I can pull them up. So let me see. I really should remember the names at this point, but like um, what am I looking for? Yeah. All right, here we go. So Memento Mori, for example, like the front enemy units scaling on effects, those just kept going from overpowered to underpowered as things about the game changed, as the number on them changed, as their cost changed. Like they were very like I like these cards a lot because they can cultivate entire strategies. They can feel very powerful when you can execute with them, but they can also be very weak when you can't. So I never wanted to like fundamentally change them, but they would just go between. Yeah, also card draw. Card draw was wild. And Graft was instantly draw a card. Like all the Awoken cards that currently draw next turn used to draw same turn because we were like, oh, it's a card draw theme. Card draw is fun. And then it became, because of the shuffling mechanic, super easy to break the game. And because of all the upgrade stuff and all that great stuff. Yep, so Amphib was around. I know. I think Link's in here. Yeah. So, right, and the armor one out of Hellhorn, battering ram. Those definitely were wild. So yeah, those were fun. I like those. Hard to balance. Maniac and a Mask. How out of balance does a mechanic have to be before you look at changing it? Like we'll change numbers pretty quickly and pretty easily. So like it can be if it really does stand out at all, we'll change numbers. If something is untunable or like. And untunable is, things that don't have clear numbers to change, as you might expect, or clear costs. So artifacts, since they don't have cost, can be harder. If it just doesn't seem like we can get it in line or make it fun or whatever, we will, in fact, take it back to the drawing board. You've seen us do it on a few things. Actually, I think there was one we changed, one artifact we changed since the public test. Where am I going? Is it right? This, and I don't recall offhand what it used to be, but one additional card in each draft will be infused. So it got changed to that because we were like, oh, this doesn't feel totally balanceable or what people are into, and DeCarnix should probably tell me in chat what this was. So we'll change it to another suggestion we liked. Someone made a suggestion to change an artifact to that, and we were like, well, this one we don't totally love. We don't think it's tunable. +1 draw when you infuse. So yeah, now it does something different. Tolby asked, purely cosmetic, but has ever been talked about train customization so trains look different during multiplayer modes? It's been talked about. We really like Hellrush. We really like multiplayer modes. The adoption rate is low enough with this version of the game that it just never was like really a worthwhile thing versus, adding more content, adding more cards. Like with this DLC, we could have chosen to do that instead of add more cards with our time. But it just, not enough people were playing multiplayer. I think a lot of our advanced players do, and it's awesome, and I really love all of our features, but it's just, kind of what that is. But, we've been talking about the future Monster Train. We like those modes. We've been talking about what it might be to have them be more integrated in the main game, other things like that. So if we were to sort of do a future Monster Train thing that was more multiplayer even, I'm certain that's something we would explore. Monkey Go-Go Beans. I'll tell you the reason I laughed in a minute. Is there a strategy you were not expecting when the game first released? To be fair, there's a lot of strategies we don't expect. The game is kind of made to have us not expect strategies. We wanted to provide tools. We like this kind of game provides building blocks to you as a player to break it, and that's always been our goal. Our goal is always to be surprised. So I don't necessarily have specifics because I feel like I see many strategies that surprise me. The draw one obviously did surprise us, and they're all great. So yeah, we just try to provide tools for you to break the game and surprise us and yourselves. All right, this is a good question. Also, I have one more thread I think I was going to answer, at least one more thread. So let me do that. Getting lower on time. So there's a Reddit thread now about percentage chance for specific events to show up, and Genesee suggested maybe I could talk a little about like how we author events to show up and why. So basically, the way they work is they, as you probably know, you've played the game. They have a range. They have certain regions they can kind of show up in. It's a range. We usually choose that based on what they do. So if something is going to have a higher or lower impact on your run in certain ways, like I think the duplicate 5 is limited, for example, other things like that, where it can be maybe too strong late game, we do kind of limit the range. And there's a lot of reasons we do that. Mostly it's just kind of fun factor, or if something doesn't seem tunable. Then the other thing we do have is like the ability to have events show up at a percentage chance compared to other events. And there are many reasons we will use that. One, the event is very strong. And we like how strong it is, but we want it to just be kind of rare. So if an event shows up and has a higher win rate than other events, we'll use that as a tuning mechanism. We will also obviously nerf things. We don't want it to be an auto win, but we do like ones that have high impact. And then the other thing is like usually like the range of options that come out of an event. So an event that upgrades or interacts with your cards or has combinatorial effects, generally we will try to have it show up more often because the effects they can have, or like the F-tuple event, the one that duplicates a card 5 times. Just the range of things it can do is more interesting. It's more strategically interesting. So the ones that give you a choice of like 3 artifacts or something because of the same 3 artifacts, we have show up a bit less because we want to have, run variety feel pretty high. So we can use that as well to like make certain events more rare. Finally, we just made the Bone Dog super rare so it stands out. We want the Bone Dog to be special. And it's good to want things. If we made it common, it would not stand out. It would just be just another card. But since it is rare, everyone talks about it, and it is a meme. And sometimes it's a little annoying not to get the thing you want, but when you get it, you'll feel good. And so that is why that is rare. It is the special one. And I know Decarnix also answered this in chat a bit, but I like this leading question from Vision of Fire. Discussing design philosophy around balancing for different player types. And player types, these examples here are kind of, quote-unquote Magic archetypes. The lead developer on Magic, I think, coined most of them. So Spike being like a pro hardcore player. Hate cards like Consumer Crown Shadow Siege. Wasted on Bandit Eater Offer. Timmy card, and Timmy is like a player who usually likes really, really big things, big numbers. How do you make both sides happy? Yeah, and really, like, we develop from all of those perspectives. We develop from sort of a coolness factor for cards, as well as like a filling in slots and power level factor. So when we're designing cards, we look at what the clan sort of needs to fulfill certain archetypes and certain feelings and certain like power dynamics to create wins and create synergy. And then we also look at just like, well, what if we made the biggest unit we could? What would be the drawbacks? And so we generally just try to make sure we're not doing too much of any one of those things and that there is a mixture of it. And then especially kind of with at least a couple rares, 1 rare unit or more, some of the rare spells, we do create those sort of like those big things because that's the place you get to do it. Also, like, for example, stealing one of the new events, which you guys have probably seen, but in case not, one of the new events lets you steal enemy units to be on your side in the last Divinity update, and that was just an idea that the team really wanted to make because it sounded cool, and it was like, we'll figure out how to balance it later, and that was part of the challenge. Bailv FFT asks, I have a question. During release, we said that we believed every Covenant 1 seed was beatable, and we weren't sure about Covenant 25. does it still hold true after seeing like people like Tomisa Fish reaching 150 streak, and what are our opinions for Divinity? Can every Covenant 1 seed beat Divinity and 25 seed beat Divinity? I do believe still every Covenant 1 seed can. And I'm still unsure about every 25 for Last Divinity. I hope we will be... I mean, I feel like at this point, probably it's beatable. At 25 as well, but it is going to be harder. That's our goal. And I think, and in part, what's going to make it harder is the wider range of options on how to upgrade things, the trap of taking too many shards. And so I fully expect there to be some learning curve before it is as beatable as the base game. Okay. I have a few more questions, or a few more minutes. I can answer a few more questions. Sit in this menu just a little bit longer. All right. Natural Transformation asks a question I don't have an answer to, but I'll still throw it out there. Do we have data on the win rates for people picking the spell shop in Ring 1? The more you play the game, the less you consider it an option. I don't know. I mean, I do to some degree. There are certain things that are, I'd say untunable or have their own narrow uses that can be okay. That is something that's, possibly worth us looking at. There are reasons to do it, and so I wouldn't want to remove it as an option. And also, that said, there's a lot more choices to make in those first couple rings with the last Divinity update. There's the new nodes to pick. Those can also change your other choices. And so I would be hesitant to make any changes now, especially. Yeah, I'll open them for the greater good, that steel card, because we did make some changes. And I think we talked about it on a previous stream, but... oops. Helps if I can spell. So it's now consume, and it takes control of with the lowest health. So you can still use it effectively, but you have to do a bit more work. And you can also remove consume, classic. Classic upgrade. Even more overpowered, says Jaybird Returns. Quite possibly. And yeah, the stolen unit goes to the front. WSS171 asked, okay, I don't know if you guys have an answer to this question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. 7 clans, 7 seraphs. Do not have an answer. Sorry. You just have to wait and see. All right, anything else people want to throw in chat? I will pick it up. Otherwise, I think we're just going to wrap up right about here. Deconix has had a bunch of great answers also in chat. So if you have, curiosity, you guys are probably just chilling in there talking about it. Check those out. Oh, now my camera's too high. But I appreciate you guys all showing up today, asking these good math questions. I mean, this stuff obviously to me is just super cool. This is what I get into. This is what I do every day. Looking forward to getting the last Divinity out to you guys. It's going to be great. There's so many changes to the game, so much new content, so many new things to earn. And I am just messing with the wrong thing right now. I was going to show you the new, if you haven't seen it, I'm sure you have. Here are the new things to get just for the people who don't come to the stream every week. So there's new mastered cards, new combo wins, divine victories with every combo, divine card mastery. Beating the last Divinity gives you divine mastery, which gives you this backing on your card plates, your card text areas. So, yep, there is. Oh, also the card frames, which I think I didn't have unlocked last time, and I still don't have it unlocked, but they're great. Yep, all these new frames. Good luck with those. They look great though. So, yep, we will. We'll keep showing up, keep talking to you guys. Great seeing you. Appreciate all the questions. I'm sure I'll be back at some point before, if not at, the release of this DLC. And I'll talk to you again in the future.